again, welcome to ITSE 1345, Competency 2.1. Talks about the tools, the software tools that are going to be used throughout this course to be able to promote all this process. Since we're using the Brew Bean database throughout this textbook, one of the things that I would like to mention is that every chapter has some work to be done. Now, the way this book works is there are scripts that support the work done in every chapter. So what you have to do is basically unzip these files that you need to use in the database within each chapter. Also, what this chapter talks about is the idea of using SQL, SQL+, and SQL Developer. Now, this is where it gets kind of confusing to many students because you have SQL, you have SQL+, and you have SQL Developer. Now, remember that you have the operating system, okay? And then in the operating system, you're going to create a database. Within the database, you can use SQL to extract the information. And then you're going to put the information in PL SQL, okay? Now, the way that these two communicate and the way these two communicate is SQL plus. Now, SQL plus is that language that allows the mechanisms to communicate. So SQL plus is that interface communication mechanism that allows the operating system and the database to communicate. It also allows the database and SQL to communicate with each other because they're actually separate products and you need to be able to communicate with them. Now, this is when you have the command line. So when you do the command line using SQL+. Now, the problem with using the command line is that it's kind of a legacy issue, kind of archaic, where you have to type all the lines, and it does require a lot of keystroke entries. So what they've come up with is a GUI interface, and this GUI interface is really neat because instead of having to do select from star to get the data out, you click on a button and it shows it. So what you do is by clicking a button, you're actuating code that's giving you the information. Instead of having to type it out, it's a mouse click. And that's a very, very nice tool. That tool is called SQL Developer. So what we're going to do is SQL Developer is the preferred tool. Now, SQL Developer is something that Oracle came up with. Now, there are other products on the market. There's a Toad, Tools for Oracle Application Developer. There's SQL Navigator. And there's other products that you can download free, use it. And each has positive and negatives. And depending on what you want to do and what you're familiar with, you can use that. Now, getting back to SQL Developer, what you would do is, if you're working with Chapter 1, somewhere on there is going to say, use this information. And it'll reference the file of whatever. I have loaded all the information into Blackboard, and it's in 2 locations. So you can either do it from the menu on the left, or you can use it in each of the chapters because it's loaded in each one. So there's 2 locations depending on what you want to do. And then that way you can work with it. So getting back to what I said at the very beginning, different publishers, different authors have different methodologies to get the information across. This particular textbook uses a lot of hands-on, and a good example of that will come evident in Chapter 2 when I start talking about that. But understanding that this is just the process where we introduce the tools that you're going to use throughout the semester. The other thing is that databases work in 2 levels. tiers. You have the client and the server. So you have the data, and then you have the mechanism that's going to work to extract the data. So understand that we're looking at for the most part in this process, a two-tier mechanism where you have the data and the process is going to extract the data. There are many advantages to using PL SQL, which is going to come throughout the semester. But the biggest advantage is that you can extract information, hold it, and process it. And then we're going to look through all these mechanisms that allow us to do that. And that concludes Competency 2.1.